Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we are going to continue our study of the book of Lamentations. We're in chapter 1, and we're going to read verses 12 through 22. We entered the text yesterday, and remember, each chapter has 22 verses because it's structured as a series of acrostics. Each verse beginning with the next letter in the Hebrew alphabet. And chapter 1 it kind of divides itself equally into two halves. So the first 11 verses, the author, Jeremiah, is presenting the city of Jerusalem as a woman, um, and terrible things have happened to her, and brutal things, savage things. But these are all consequences of her own actions. And but there is and that's admitted, and yet there's a great deal of sympathy and um, an almost paternal desire to protect in the voice of of Jeremiah as he describes what has happened to God's people. And we also found out, we also heard the city herself speak, and twice to God. And both those times she said, "Look at me, look at me, at what has happened to me." And we also realize in verse 10 that the prophet himself is speaking to God as he's describing the city and generating the sympathy in the reader. He's speaking directly to God, that we are overhearing the things that he wants to say to God. As we finish the chapter, this is primarily the city as a woman, the city herself, the nation herself, the Jewish people, um, the woman who embodies the Jews who were carried into captivity, and the city of Jerusalem that was destroyed. Um, we are listening to her speak mostly, and it's a bit of a theodicy as well, an admission that God is right in his judgment. But I don't know that I would call verses 12 through 22 repentance, not the way we understand it from the teaching of the New Testament. Let's read 12 through 22. Is it nothing to all of you who pass this way? Look and see if there is any pain like my pain, which was severely dealt out to me, which Yahweh inflicted on the day of his fierce anger. From on high, he sent fire into my bones, and it prevailed. He has spread a net for my feet. He has turned me back. He has made me desolate, made me faint all day long. The yoke of my transgressions is bound. By the hand they are knit together. They have come upon my neck. He has made my strength fail. Yahweh has given me into their hands, and I am not able to stand. The Lord has rejected all my strong men in my midst. He has called an appointed time against me to crush my young men. The Lord has trodden, as in a winepress, the virgin daughter of Jerusalem. For these things I weep. My eyes run down with water, because far from me is a comforter, one who restores my soul. My children are desolate, because the enemy has prevailed. Zion stretches out her hands. There is no one to comfort her. Yahweh has commanded concerning Jacob that the ones round about him should be his adversaries. Jerusalem has become an unclean thing among them. It's the second time he said that. For I have rebelled against his command. Hear now, all peoples, look at my pain. My virgins and my young men have gone into captivity. I called to my lovers, but they deceived me. My priests and my elders perished in the city, while they sought food to restore their strength themselves. Look, Yahweh, I'm in distress. My spirit is greatly troubled. My heart is overturned within me, for I have been very rebellious. In the street, the sword slays. In the house, it is like death. And they have heard that I groan. There is no one to comfort me. All my enemies have heard of my calamity. They are glad that you've done it. Oh, that you would bring the day which you have proclaimed, that they may become like me. Let all their wickedness come before you, and deal with them as you have dealt with me, for all my transgressions, for my groans are many, and my heart is faint. Well, mostly we have the city, the Jewish people, the nation, we have the woman speaking. And she continues to say what she started to say briefly in the first 11 verses, which is, look at me, and see how badly, is there any pain like my pain? There's a reference, a quote really, of a phrase at the beginning and the ending of this section from Hosea chapter 11. That's not a coincidence. In Hosea chapter 11, when God is hauling off the northern kingdom into captivity, a nation to whom he did not make the promises he made to the southern kingdom in Jeremiah chapter 11. He didn't say things are going to be fine once you get there, you're going to prosper. He didn't say any of those things. And God in Hosea 11 is saying, is speaking to himself, how awful it is for him to have to do this. And he talks about Israel as his son Jacob. And I raised him up. I held his hand when he was an infant. I brought him out of Egypt. I stooped over to feed him because when he was small. But they don't recognize that it was me. And he says, I cannot come in my fierce anger because my heart is overturned within me. And those two phrases, his fierce anger and my heart is overturned within me, they're embedded in this section. And it really does reference that. And so it takes the reader, us, back to this moment, more than 140 years before, when God is doing the same thing. God is about to do the same thing that he did to the southern kingdom, hauling the northern kingdom into captivity. And it reminds us that this was not easy, that this was not done um, with glee, that God did not enjoy punishing the nation, bringing about the consequences that had to happen, that the nation with her sin made inevitable. Um, and so I just wanted to point those two those two phrases out. Um, so she's not only speaking to God, but the nation now is speaking to those around her, and the nation continues to incriminate herself. You know, you know, uh, this is how this is how Yahweh treated me. You think this is a joke? You're gloating over me, but just see how much I'm suffering, and you'll know that it isn't. But then she also talks about, I called out to my lovers. You know, I did this, um, and I listened to my false priests and my false prophets who made themselves fat while they were lying to me, and I've been rebellious in the street. She says this. The nation says this over and over again, and admits her guilt. But I don't think this admission of guilt is in any way repentance, because this is not necessarily a lesson learned. Because in verse 22, what the city says, what the nation says, what she says is not forgive me. She says, I want you to punish the nations who did this to me, like you promised you would. This is revenge. This is lust for Schadenfreude. This is, I want to see them suffer too. And that's where the woman, the nation, the city is in verse 22. Okay. Um, in chapter 2, we really do have a theodicy. This is something that God did, and it was right for him to do it. It was necessary for him to do it, even though it was terrible. We'll pick up with chapter 2 next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.